Hey, what's up my friends? It's Shamrocked here with another boss guide for you. This is for Naraxas on a 23 with Tyrannical, Incorporeal, and Spiteful as the affixes. So if you've been following my channel for a bit this season, you may know that I already have a Naraxas guide out. However, that was made the very first week and it was only on a 16. And it was before they nerfed the boss, so it was actually still really hard. But I've had more experience running this season since then, and I've been pushing a little bit higher keys. So I decided to make another video on a 23 just to show that basically the same strategy still works. And that strategy is using Flow of the Tides. So just a quick look at my talents. First on the left tree, going into this dungeon, you definitely want to take Poison Cleansing Totem just for Naraxas, and you also want to take Stone Skin Totem for the first boss, but also it helps with Naraxas as well with the guys that throw the rocks at people throughout the fight. Another strategy that you could do is go into Totemic Recall and Creation Core, and that's basically going to give you a second Poison Cleansing Totem throughout the fight. However, in my opinion, I don't think it's necessarily needed. It's just something that could help out. So if you're starved for points, especially on a week like this week where you have to take Hex for Incorporeal, I would say you don't need Totemic Recall, but it's definitely a good safety net. It just gives you another Poison Cleansing Totem for any of the phases where you might need some extra help. Moving over to the right side of the tree, this is basically the standard build. The only thing that I've changed is I've taken Flow of the Tides, and I have also taken Wave Speaker's Blessing. So I actually took a point out of Ancestral Vigor in order to get that, while still keeping Lava Surge and Master of the Elements. Ancestral Vigor is an amazing talent. Having 1 point is 5% health, having 2 point is 10% health, basically with everybody that you heal. However, I haven't hit the point in these dungeons, especially in Nelth's Lair. There's not any one-shot mechanics. I guess you could argue that the first boss has the potential to one-shot, but you'll see with the guide that I put out for that boss that there are ways that you can get around it so that that actually doesn't happen. So anyways, this is the build that I'm using. Flow of the Tides is the key here. It's going to really beef up your chain heals for those big burst damage windows that Naraxas does. I think Naraxas is probably one of the most bursty damage has one of the most bursty damage patterns of most of the bosses this season. So if there's any dungeon to run Flow of the Tides, I really think it's this one. That being said, normally I run Ancestral Reach for most other dungeons, and you can do that as well. Just note that also Wave Speaker's Blessing, it may seem counterintuitive because you're actually eating up your Riptides, but Wave Speaker's Blessing just means that you may have more Riptides to work with because they fall off slower. So if you're using Flow of the Tides to the best of your ability and targeting Riptides that are almost falling off, Wave Speaker's Blessing can definitely help you out there just by giving you a bit more ammunition. Alright, here we go. So this boss is really about cooldown management. It's really about spacing everything out to different Toxic Wretch phases, which is the poison that goes out on everybody, and making sure that you have basically something to heal through each one of those. Every 3 Toxic Wretch phases, you get a Spiked Tongue, so you can kind of use that to keep track of where you're going to be. Because I'm playing Flow of the Tides, I am using Riptides as ammunition to sort of really get nice big juicy chain heals on the group during the Toxic Wretch phases. So because of that, I spend some time before each Toxic Wretch trying to get out some Riptides, even before the damage starts happening. So with this Rancid Maw, I'm going to put down my Cloudburst, I'm going to get Riptides out, I'm going to get a Primordial Wave out, and then I'm most likely going to lead with this Primordial Wave pretty much every Toxic Wretch that I can. And the reason that I do that is because I'm playing Flow of the Tides, I want to always start with my Primordial Wave, because once I start using Chain Heals, I'm going to get rid of those Riptides, and then obviously Primordial Wave wouldn't be as effective. So just keep that in mind if you are going to play with this playstyle. Second set of Toxic Wretches, I use my Poison Cleanse Totem. And because you're lusting on this pull, you really should be. There's no reason to lust on the second boss. And even if you lust here, it should be up for the last boss as well if you're taking a long time. So anyways, with lust, you should be able to handle the first 2 poison cleanses without popping any major cooldowns. And then for the third one, I believe I use Ancestral Guidance here. Yeah, so Ancestral Guidance for the third one, and then that should be enough to keep everybody alive going into the first Spiked Tongue phase. So for Spiked Tongue, it's a great opportunity to just get some DPS in, or it's a great opportunity to catch up if you're falling a bit behind from the third Toxic Wretch. Keep in mind though that the Pelters will continue to throw rocks at people during the Spiked Tongue, so don't just let people sit there low because it can kill them. I actually have Stone Skin Totem for this dungeon as well because it helps on the first boss, so I usually just pop that as well throughout this fight whenever I can, just because it will help with the rock damage that people are taking. Alright, going into the first Toxic Wretch after the first Spiked Tongue, I pop down a Poison Cleanse totem to help out with the debuffs. And once again, just using that standard Flow of the Tides playstyle, that's great. And then going into this second Toxic Wretch, I see that I have Primordial Wave, so I'm most likely going to use that. And don't forget, if you have your 4-piece or even your 2-piece, that your Healing Rain is going to do some extra healing here. So putting that out before a Toxic Wretch phase is always a great idea. And you'll see, with the High Tide, Flow of the Tide chain heals, you pretty much, like, you top the entire group with like, you get 2 chain heals that top the entire group, and if you use it while a Cloudburst totem is down, that just gives you so much fuel for, like, the next damage phase. So I 100% strongly believe that Flow of the Tides is the easiest way to do this boss with our kit. That being said, you obviously don't have to do it. You can use Reach if you want. But yeah, so I also used Healing Wave during that second bunch of Toxic Wretches. So I basically try to use 1 cooldown only per 3 Toxic Wretches, basically in between the Spiked Tongues. And that will give you at least 1 cooldown to use towards the end, and maybe even 2. So for instance, I'm going into this, what is likely going to be our last 3 set of Toxic Wretches with Ascendance and Spirit Link as well, which is great. Alright, you'll see for this set, once again, I'm only using my Flow of the Tides and that's it, just using those Riptides as ammunition. And then I also used a P-Wave, a Primordial Wave at the end of the Toxic Wretch phase there, and that's just because I felt myself falling a little bit behind. So I just wanted to catch up for this phase, and then for the second one, I didn't really have a lot up. I didn't have my Poison Cleanse totem or Stone Skin or anything special, so I decided to use Ascendance just to make sure that I could get all those nice big AoE heals out on the group during that poison phase. And then for this last one, I don't think I need, yeah, so I used my Spirit Link because that's my last one. I also saw the tank was getting low there, so I had to sort of switch focus to get to them. So you'll see going into the Spiked Tongue phase, it's probably the lowest that everybody is, but because during the Spiked Tongue, there's really not a lot of damage going out other than the Rock Pelters, that gives you a nice chance to heal everybody up. So once again, on that third Toxic Wretch, if you're going to be slacking on any of them, it should be on the third one for every set, because you do have a little bit of time afterwards to heal people up during this Spiked Tongue. And that's pretty much it. The boss is now dead. And I'm not going to say it's an easy fight, because it's not. There's a lot of damage. There's a lot of stuff happening, especially with the Rancid Maw, which is like the circle that targets you and then puts a pool in the ground. Having to move out of the way from that at inopportune times is really sucky. It makes the fight a lot harder. So for those instances, you want to save Astral Shift if you have to move during like a Toxic Wretch, or Spirit Walker's Grace as well is great for helping out. But as I said, like, although this fight is hard, I believe that Flow of the Tides makes it significantly easier, because your chain heals, basically, like I said, you get 2 beefed up High Tide chain heals pretty much every Toxic Wretch phase, and that is enough to top the group up, even when everybody is like, 20% or sub 20% health. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this guide. It's nice actually, because the last Naraxas guide I did was the very first week, and it was on a 16, and I had a feeling that Flow of the Tides was going to be the way to go for this place, and that is still I'm sticking with that. That's actually my thoughts for this boss. Is Flow of the Tides makes it a lot easier, and then Flow of the Tides is also fine for the last boss as well, so you're not really screwing yourself over at any point. And it's also great for the first boss as well, which I am also going to make a guide from this run. So anyways, if you enjoyed this and it helped you out, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you next time.